So I'm with my friend Jack Malcolm, author of several books that I will recommend highly to you, accomplished speaker, thinker on all things selling, and a retired banker. As I've gotten to know Jack, one of the things that we shared in common was history in banking. His goes back a little farther than mine. My dad was in banking. Jack, your grandfather was in banking, as I recall.
My grandfather was in banking. I have one of his pens that he used to give out from the Nisland Irrigator State Bank, or something like that, in the 1930s. And if memory serves, I think that maybe his father or his father-in-law was a banker as well. So I guess I could be a fourth generation banker, at least three that I can claim for sure.
So where was the Nisland State Bank?
Nisland, South Dakota.
Nisland, South Dakota. And your dad was in banking.
And my dad was in banking. He got into banking in the 50s, went to work for Chase Manhattan Bank, and spent time in their international department, mainly in the Caribbean.
So it was preordained. You had to become a banker.
No, I didn't have to become a banker. I didn't want to become a banker, but when I got out of college, I realized that a degree in military history wasn't going to really help me find the kind of job that I needed to sustain myself in the style to which I aspired. So I decided to go back and get a degree in finance. I got an MBA in finance because I figured I was a very introverted person. I didn't see myself as a salesperson or even as a people person. I love to crunch numbers. I said, I can do something in finance. And I thought, well, why not banking? Banking was a very regulated industry. If you became a banker, you could sit behind a desk and people would knock on your door and come in and ask whether they could borrow money. And you could say yes, you could say no. But either way, you were going to lend it out at 3%, or you were going to pay 3%, lend it out at 6%, and hit the golf course every day at 2. That 3-6-2 rule was something that I thought was fantastic. That's why I got into banking, because I figured it was a great way to be introverted and lazy.
Well, so you went through, as I did, a credit training program.
Yep.
And when you and I talked about this, one of the things that as a new person in banking you're asked to do is analyze financial statements. So analyzing financial statements often leads a new credit analyst to have to talk about what the analysis means. And when we were talking about it, you made me laugh because you coined something which I remember vividly, which was people ask me, well, so what does that mean, Ned? So what?
Right.
What is the so what principle?
Well, the so what principle is basically about connecting your message to something that's meaningful. And what that means in a credit aspect is one thing. It also carries over to everything to do with sales, persuasion, and communication. Let me explain what I mean. Back when I had junior analysts would turn in credit reports for me, there were what I basically called elevator reports. Sales went up, gross margins went down, costs went up, and this and that. It was like everything was either up or down. But they didn't know how to connect that to the true answer to the question was, is this a meaningful credit risk? So I would take a red pen and I would say, all right, well, so gross margins went down. So what? Inventory levels are increasing. So what? Cash flow is either increasing or decreasing. I'd say, so what? And I'd turn it back to them and there'd be so what written at least a dozen times on every credit report that I got back. And then they'd have to rewrite it and they'd try to answer those questions. It got to the point that when I actually left that department and went to work for another bank, I got an engraved gold cross pen that said, so what on it.
So connect the dots here for me. When it comes to a business conversation, one of the things that a banker is obviously trying to demonstrate is that he or she understands the business implications of the finances. And so the so what question ties in there. Talk to me a little bit about how you build your credibility and your business in business acumen terms.
Well, here's how I started making a connection to sales. And this is a long story, which I won't bore you with here, but I actually made a sales call on a guy who ran a sales training company. 6 months later, I left the banking industry and went to work for him. Our clients were people involved in the early 90s in the high-tech industries, and they were selling things such as computer hardware and software, test and measurement equipment, et cetera, to customers. And I would come in and I'd work with their salespeople. and they would start spouting out all kinds of stuff about what we call feeds and speeds, or how well their product worked, talking all about the features of their products. And I'd sit there and I'd say, well, so what? They said, what do you mean, so what? I'd say, how does that help my business? If I'm playing a part of a role play and I'm playing a part of the decision maker, and they say, well, isn't that kind of, we bring the product, you figure out how to make it work. And I said, I don't think it works that way. You want me to invest several $1 million of my money, you better be able to connect that to a business case for me. So they would realize that just by asking, so what, it helped to clarify their thinking. Now, if you as a salesperson, as a banker, as a communicator, anytime you're trying to get somebody to do something, you better think of that so what question before you go in there. Instead of saying our bank has been around for 100 years and we've got $80 billion in assets and we've got locations here and we've got locations there and we've got all these wonderful products. Every time you catch yourself saying that, kind of say, well, so what? What does that mean? And give the so what. Don't assume that the other person is going to get it automatically.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And it's the so what does it mean for the other party?
Correct.
And if you can't come up with a good answer to that, it's probably not something that's going to add a whole lot of value.
No, it's not. And there are times that you can't answer that question, and that's fine, but at least go in there and ask the questions, and maybe they can answer the so what for you, and they will appreciate the fact that you're not coming in there and just beating yourself on the chest saying, look how great we are. You're actually coming in and trying to understand their business and finding ways to change their business in some way so that you produce useful outcomes.
Yeah, the so what principle, I like that. That'll be a good lesson for both credit analysts and for relationship bankers. So thanks very much, Jack.
Sure.